like yes. Okay, wonderful. Great. Well, I want to welcome all of you who have joined us today for the webinar Program Year 2023-2024 Welcome. We've got a lot of information to share. We're grateful for the time that you've made available and looking forward to getting into it. My name is Mike Tancredi. I'm a Senior Marketing Manager with Energy Solutions, part of the Program Administrator team and supporting communications. I appreciate that opportunity. But I'm really privileged to introduce today's speakers who are doing so much to drive clean energy in Illinois, along with all of you. I want to introduce Audrey Steinbach. She's the Senior Program Manager for Illinois Shines with the Illinois Power Agency, and Tamara Perry, Energy Solutions, where she's a Director of Solar and Storage Programs and supporting the Illinois Shines program. So you'll hear from them in just a moment. I'm going to share a couple of housekeeping items before we get into today's agenda. Everyone will be muted during the presentation. We do encourage questions, and if you have them that you'd like to ask during the webinar, please use the Q&A box. That's most helpful for allowing us to address as many questions as possible. We look to address those in real time when you raise them during the webinar. We'll loop back at the end of the session, though, for additional Q&A and to recap some of those. So please make sure to press the Q&A button versus the chat button. We'll answer as many as we can during today's webinar, but recording of this webinar, the presentation slides, and a published Q&A document will follow the webinar presentation as well. So with that, I want to hand it over to Tamara Perry for the agenda today.
Great, thanks, Mike. Just a quick, you can see it here on the screen, but a quick overview of today's agenda. We'll have a welcome from Audrey. We'll go over updates, resources, and guidance from the program. We'll do and provide some details on the minimum equity standard, the new disclosure forms. We'll provide portal updates, and then give a chance to understand how to get additional stakeholder support and new information on our brand refresh. And then, as Mike mentioned, we'll end with some additional questions and answers. So with that, I'll pass it on to Audrey to give a welcome.
Thanks, Tamara. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I personally am very excited to have you all here, and I'm really looking forward to another program year. I know Tamara shares in that as well. Today is going to be a really great opportunity for us to walk through the changes that you can expect coming up in the new program year, and also to ensure that all of you stakeholders are in the know on these plan changes. For those that don't know me, as Mike just said, I'm Audrey Steinbach, and I'm the Senior Program Manager for the program with the IPA. And I just wanted to, again, thank everyone for their time and their continued commitment to the program. So without further ado, I'll pass it back to Tamara to get us started.
Thank you, Audrey. So I wanted to start with a quick review of the program team's activities from the prior program year, and really also emphasize what we're continuing to improve on. So we continue to prioritize and improve our application processing review times and roll out core functionality and features from the portal. Every week, you can see we're posting weekly application processing times, which includes the number of applications processed, as well as resolution of each application stage. We'll also see changes next week to the portal that we've been working very diligently on, related to the new disclosure forms, as well as the Community Solar API functionality. And then on the right side of your screen, I just wanted to quickly highlight some of the key activities from the 2022-2023 program cycle. So that included, rebuilding the program platform, AV and designee support through our roundtables and one-on-one meetings with our sector strategy team, office hours and webinars like this one. And then in the program year, we also saw an expansion of CEJA and long-term plan commitments with 3 new program categories. We'll also talk about the minimum equity standard rollout and then enhanced customer protection support. So just a little flavor of all of the activities and hard work that this team has been working on over the last year. So as we look forward to an exciting year ahead, Energy Solutions will continue to provide vendor and designee support, including adding an inspections protocol and technical support. We'll continue to work towards a 2-week application review turnaround time. We're on target to meet that by the end of the summer. We're also hosting and will continue to host office hours and working groups to meet AV and utility needs. This quarter, we've also launched our sector-specific roundtables and are planning to launch an EEC mentorship program, and I'll get into that a bit more later in the presentation. And then on the customer support and consumer protection front, we're continuing to improve our resources for AVs, providing additional support for stranded customers, and expanding the resources available. So now Audrey and I are kind of going to ping pong a little bit between different aspects and an overview of recent program updates, resources, and guidance. So I'll pass it back at the moment to Audrey to talk about block capacity.
Thanks, Tamara. So what you'll see on this slide here is the predetermined size for the annual blocks for each group and category combination. So again, these are kind of the set predetermined original size for these annual blocks. And as first introduced last year, there will be a reallocation or rollover of unused capacity from the previous program year. So the program year that we're in right now, that will finish up at the end of May. So that reallocation will take place and will impact these numbers slightly. Next slide, please. So this is kind of a lot of text, but we wanted to make sure that this PowerPoint could be used as a resource moving forward once it's posted. And I do just want to note that all of the information on the reallocation process can be found in section 1H of the program guidebook. And this is more of a summary of this reallocation process. So I'm going to step through this briefly. So first, for both the public schools and the community-driven community solar categories, only 50% of the unused capacity from those categories will be subject to reallocation. The rest will remain in these categories. As these categories are newer to the program, we want to ensure that we're not taking away capacity from those newer programs that are just kind of starting to gain traction. The full amount of all other unused capacity from other categories will be reallocated to address any wait lists that have formed in the program based on the prioritization outlined here in these bullet points. So the first prioritization will be the EEC category, next the small DG category, and then the community-driven community solar category after that. If any unused capacity still remains after prioritizing any wait lists that have formed in those categories in that order, then the capacity will be used to address any other wait lists that have formed in any other categories in the program. So again, we won't know the total amount of unused capacity from this current program year until this program year ends, obviously on May 31st. So look forward to updates on this in the first couple weeks of June as we kind of do the math on that unused capacity and see what we're working with in terms of reallocation. Next slide, please, which I believe is Tamara's. Yes.
Thanks, Audrey. So another resource that was released in April is the 2023-2024 program guidebook that will go into effect on June 1st. This slide has, again, for reference, some of the high-level changes. So things like the public schools anchor tenant waiver, MES waivers, and general reordering and clarification of different information. I think the most important thing to note here is this guidebook version doesn't have the updated information on the ICC's order on program reopening, which includes new requirements for the EEC category. So the administration team is working on incorporating these changes into the guidebook. They'll happen very soon. And Audrey will also speak to those a little bit later in the presentation, but just wanted to highlight here, if you're going through the new guidebook, there are still going to be some additional edits, which you'll see in the coming weeks. And there's also a quick link to that guidebook when you get these slides. Okay, another key document that was released in April is the updated Consumer Protection Handbook. This has new requirements and updates for AVs and designee management, some new processes for program violations, and modifications and clarifications to the community solar requirements related to bill payments, insurance and maintenance, and contract assignments. So definitely it's a resource you want to check out with this new program year opening. Slide. The program has also published new contract requirements that's required by June 1st for both DG and community solar projects. These include common contract requirements for all business models, as well as different requirements for certain contract types, transaction types. So AVs will attest compliance to these requirements in the part 2 of their each project application. You have some nice quick links at the bottom of this slide as well for reference. I think I'm going to pass it now back to Audrey.
Yes, so let's talk about REC prices. Earlier this spring, the agency released updated REC prices for this program year, which will be linked here on that quick link once you get these slides. There's an accompanying rationale document released with those updated prices to further explain the changes that occurred in the pricing. So the prices will be in a spreadsheet, and if you want to read more about why those changes took place, the rationale document is where you can find that explanation. So we'll take a quick look at these prices on the next couple of slides, and they're both linked on the slide deck. And they are also posted on the program website under the resources section if you want to take a look at them before these slides get posted. So additionally, the agency has been working with a consultant to review the REC pricing model used for the program to determine if the best approach or used to determine the best approach moving forward for setting REC prices. There was a stakeholder feedback process that took place earlier this spring in March, and the agency expects to share the findings of this work this summer and will provide any updates to the REC pricing model that might occur through the next update of the agency's long-term renewable resources procurement plan. So look forward to some more information this summer on that work. Next slide, please. So I think we can just pause on this page for a bit so that people can take a look at the REC prices for Group A. Give everyone a chance to do that for a moment. Okay, and then we can go on to Group B on the next slide. And hopefully that should be plenty of time for people to check out the prices that they want to look at. And again, these are posted on the program website and are in the program guide as well. So next slide, please. We wanted to highlight a prevailing wage reminder for everyone. This is not a change from last program year. This is just a continued requirement, but it is a very important reminder. So most projects in the program, with a few exceptions, are subject to prevailing wage requirements by law. So this means that construction activities for projects participating in the program need to be compensated at the local prevailing wage rate. Proof of compliance with these requirements is required at the Part 2 application. So all approved vendors should be aware of that and should familiarize themselves with the prevailing wage hub on the program website, which has tons of information about these requirements, where to find the local prevailing wage rates for each county in the state, more information from the Illinois Department of Labor, who sets prevailing wage rates, and tons of other good stuff like FAQs and more information on those few exceptions to these requirements. So again, important reminder, check out that Prevailing Wage Hub and make sure you're familiar with all these requirements, because you will see those uploads needed at the Part 2 application. Next slide, please. Okay, Tamara touched on this briefly a few slides ago, but there are some changes coming to the equity eligible contractor category. So as announced on May 19th, there are some changes coming to this EEC category. And the two key ones that I want to touch on for this upcoming program year is first the establishment of subcategories for DG and community solar projects within the EEC category. And second, a 20% developer cap in this category. So let's talk about the subcategories really briefly first. The subcategories will separate capacity for DG and community solar projects within the EEC block for the first 9 months that the block is open, to ensure that there is a diversity in the type of projects that are being developed within this category. Next, for the developer cap, this developer cap will only be triggered and put into place if there is an oversubscription of one of the subcategories on the first day that the annual block of capacity for the category is open. So that was a super long sentence and had a ton of information packed into it. So I would really encourage any approved vendors that are operating within the equity eligible contractor category or plan to do so in the future to check out that announcement from us on May 19th that details more information, provides examples about the subcategories and the developer cap and how and when those will work. There's more detail about these changes in the current version of the long-term plan, which can also be found on the program website under the resources section, and will be there on that quick link once these slides are posted. These changes are not yet incorporated into the program guidebook, so don't look for them there at the moment. Look for them again in that May 19th announcement, as well as the modified long-term plan. And these changes will be put into the program guidebook as soon as possible, hopefully within the next few, in the next week, next few days here. I think with that, I will pass it back over to Tamara.
Great, thanks, Audrey. I'm going to take a little time to talk about the minimum equity standard. So this is a new requirement beginning this program year. Each participating, and next slide, please, approved vendor and registered designee and nested designee is required to meet a minimum percentage of equity eligible persons or EEPs in their Illinois project workforce. So in the 2023-2024 program year, the requirement is 10% for an entity's project workforce. The following program year, it goes up to 12%. And then future years percentages are determined by an update to the long-term plan. And definitions of all of the EEPs, the minimum workforce percentages, and key steps and dates for compliance are on the program's website Equity Accountability Systems page. It's linked in the quick links down here. And there are a bunch of resources in support of the MES compliance rollout on the program's website. And there's a specific MES support office hours that is scheduled for tomorrow. So just a lot of resources for you, and make sure to also attend those office hours if you have additional questions. Okay, next slide. So for this program year, the administration team will continue to offer AV support as we have this year. So things like office hours, one-on-one calls with strategists. We'll have the minimum equity standard compliance plan, mid-year report and year-end report submissions. The strategy team is also preparing to launch a mentorship pilot to target equity eligible contractors and diverse small business solar contractors that will provide additional support and also match them with AVs who can best provide best practices. for participating in the Illinois Shines program. We're also exploring development of an AV Learning Hub. So there'll be access to existing resources like webinar recordings and specific how-to guides that will facilitate program participation. And then this year we'll also be increasing our outreach efforts to different subcategories like public schools, ESJ communities, and small business solar contractors, so that we can provide them information about participating in the program and the different opportunities that are available to them. And I will now pass it back to Audrey to talk about the new disclosure forms.
Thanks, Tamara. So we just hosted a webinar, I believe earlier this week, on the new disclosure forms. It might have been last week. Some of these dates are running together a little bit for me. There are tons of new changes on the forms. I don't want to do a disservice to that webinar at all. There are tons of materials that we put together from that webinar that are quick linked below. But the main thing to keep in mind with the new disclosure forms is they are more streamlined, they're more dynamic. We've been hearing for a couple of years now that the previous versions of the disclosure forms were too long, too clunky, and weren't helping customers get the information that they need. We listened to that and we wanted to make sure those changes were made. So you'll see those changes reflected in these new disclosure forms, which will be available to everyone on June 1st. There's more information about the Community Solar Disclosure Form API as well in that webinar, and different CSV options for bulk uploading for both DG and Community Solar Disclosure Forms. So I would encourage, if you have any questions or want more detail related to these disclosure forms that will be released on June 1st, to check out that quick link where you'll find questions and answers, as well as a recording of that webinar.
Okay, and now for some portal updates. We have published a new block capacity dashboard, visualization, a project map, and project application reports on our website. We're also currently working on a project lookup tool coming later this year. And as I mentioned before, we will also publish an updated portal roadmap in June that will outline the new features expected to be released per quarter. So look out for that both on the website and in our announcements. Okay, getting towards the end of the presentation here. So thinking about how we can provide additional stakeholder support. We want to support all the participants of the program, specifically around things like the newly launched minimum equity standard, our annual reports process, the new disclosure forms. We held 5 roundtable events in March and May, and are going to be releasing the action items from those meetings. We will continue to host those roundtables. They were really great discussions with each of the different program categories that will continue to happen twice a year moving forward. And then for kind of more frequent interaction, we have our weekly office hours every Wednesday. We're also providing expanded office hours when we have new initiatives or software releases. So there's a bunch that are happening this week and next week. And you can always find information on these office hours on our weekly announcement and on our website. So definitely check out these next couple of office hours if you have questions specifically to any of these new initiatives. And I'm really excited to see and talk with you over the next year. So now I'll pass it over to Mike to go over our exciting brand refresh and new website.
Great. Thanks so much, Tamara. And I think what I want to lead with is to assure stakeholders that the work we're doing on the brand refresh and the website are enhancements and enrichments to the program. They're not in any way detracting from our focus on operations, processing, or portal development or more, but rather they're an opportunity to continue to share the promise of the program and invite and include more Illinoisans in the growing presence of solar energy in the state. And so we want to do some things to create greater visibility, make it easier to understand the program, how it works, and invite that participation. One of the centerpieces of that is a new website coming very soon. As stakeholders will know, we currently operate both a public website and a programmatic website. We have an opportunity, and we're very excited to soon unveil a combined website that will really reflect the various stakeholder journeys from our customers and consumers to all of our participating vendors, with all of the resources that you come to expect on and rely on. So both existing AVs and customers, as well as prospective AVs, designees, and customers. And we have a greater organization of information, a greater presentation, more dynamic information content to tell the story of the Illinois Shines program. That's being accompanied by some updated program brochures, notably things like the Community Solar and DG program brochures, the Guide to Going Solar graphics, but some new materials. You saw a reference earlier to the guide to the Equity Accountability System. We have a long form guide to going solar and more resources. So the idea is to make it full of information and resources that can be accessed for the common benefit for all the participating stakeholders in the program. And more to come on that. We, I think, are ready then to move into the question and answer period. So I'll continue in my capacity there. I do want to loop back on a couple things that our presenters shared today. So I want to thank Audrey Steinbach and Tamara Perry, and I know we're ready to answer more questions. Tamara spoke about the MES compliance plans and some of the support that we have offered there. Actually, pardon me, that was Audrey. Just prior to this meeting, you should have received an announcement, and that includes an updated FAQ that has been prepared by the agency. So we've gotten some questions about some of the examples and illustrations that our stakeholders have sought. So I want to encourage you to check that and the program website where those new updated FAQs will be available. And then Audrey did mention the recent disclosure form webinar that was held on May 18th. And that presentation, along with this one and all of our program year webinars, can be found at the program website. So the recordings, the presentation slides, and the Q&A under the program year updates subtab of the program updates tab. So with that, I want to loop back and look at some of the questions that we've received and answered. Question was asked where we can see the wait lists, and the current wait list can be found at the program website. Under the projects category, there's a block capacity dashboard subpage. I'm sure most stakeholders are familiar with that, and we'll link that in the Q&A, but that is in fact where the wait lists reside. Next question. At some point during this meeting, can the program administrator provide an update on the EEC program awards for 2022-2023? We are interested in dates being announced for awards. If projects are not awarded before June 1, 2023, how will that affect the 2023-24 program year? And the response from the agency is that after the ICC order was released, the program administrator was able to begin the review of EEC applications, which is currently in progress. Those EEC applications will be sent to the ICC as they become Part 1 approved, which will continue into June and likely occur across the summer of 2023. Next question, is the target date for the next long-term plan draft still August 15th, 2023? And the response from the agency is yes, there will be a stakeholder feedback opportunities prior to that date. So please be on the lookout for those this summer. Helpfully, someone asked if we reversed the Group A and Group B pricing on our slides, and regrettably we did. Thank you for pointing that out. We will correct those in the recording and the presentation slides. So thank you for noting that, and we'll get those reversed. I want to point out that the correct and current prices are in the program guidebook at the program's resources page. So thank you. Next question, does Part 1 application submission date determine which energy year / rec pricing the project is subject to? The response from the agency, yes, but please keep in mind that applications will need to be batched, and a batch needs to be submitted in the portal for an application to be considered submitted. So good question, and thank you to the agency. Has the IPA further defined the term project workforce in terms of the minimum equity standard compliance plan? And looping back to a note I shared at the top of this segment, yes, we have added at the program's equity accountability system page in the minimum equity standard area. We've added a link to the newly updated FAQs, those build on the questions and answers that were published on April 14th and most recently edited with today's date. So please take a look at that as well. Next question, when will the ability to edit disclosure forms be available? And the answer is that the program administrator expects the ability to clone disclosure forms and then edit from a cloned form to come in summer 2023. We want to assure stakeholders this is a high priority, understand the significance of that, and the development team is working on that with priority. Next question, will community-driven community solar 2022-23 awards still be announced by the end of this month? The response from the agency is we do not expect CDCS awards to be made until later in the summer, closer to the end of July. And Audrey, Tamara, if there's anything you want to add or augment to what I'm sharing, please jump in, just let me know.
Great, will do.
Next one. Has the program updated the program brochure or the program timeline document? Yes, thanks. That was close to, I'm going to loop back on that slide just so you can get a visual. We've got the CS and Guide to Going Solar graphics there. Those will be published very shortly. They have updated content that the agency has contributed, updated design, Spanish language versions, and ADA accessible versions. These, of course, are pre-pended to disclosure forms, and these will be published. They're in near finalization, will be published to the program website very shortly. So thank you for your interest. The next question, do minimum equity standard reports need to list the names of all equity eligible persons and demonstrate that they are in fact meet the criteria as qualified equity eligible persons? And the response from the agency is that next year, the end of year reports will need to list all equity eligible persons for the compliance plans due June 1st, 2023. No, you just need to outline your plans for meeting the MES across the upcoming program year. So good question, and thank you to the agency. Next question. It was our understanding that the program administrator began the review of EEC Group B applications in February of 2023. When should we expect to hear awards for these projects? And the response from the agency, from Audrey, that's correct. Individual projects are reviewed on a first come, first served basis. So approved vendors will hear individually on their application approvals as they take place. Application review progress can be viewed on the program website. We are continuing catch up on reviews at the moment, and we are publishing updates, including the turnaround time and where we're at on the submitted as update at the program website. You can see that under the project applications tab and continue to make progress there. Thank you for your interest. To Audrey and Tamara, I have gotten through the questions that we were able to answer during the webinar. We have some open questions, which I'm going to review now, but I also want to pause to give you the floor if there are anything you want to add or augment to what I've shared and recap there. If not, I can move into another question.
Thanks, Mike. I'm just reviewing these now. There are a few on MES items. We will be releasing updated MES FAQs later today. And I know that also one of the program associates is working on typing in some answers to those. So we hope that these answers will be provided through those FAQs that we'll release later today.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, and those should be in inboxes as we speak if you're a subscriber to the weekly announcements. So take a look there. A couple more that I can address, which have been subsequently responded to. Can the program describe again if and how existing projects will be updated, will be impacted by updating the disclosure form, specifically projects that have signed the current disclosure form but have not been batched and submitted by June 1, 2023, customers that were sent a disclosure form before June 1 but do not sign by June 1, and third instance, projects that sign a disclosure form before June 1 and have a material modification after June 1, 2023. The response from the agency that these are outlined in the disclosure form webinar from May 18th, and then the Q&As released for that webinar. Those will actually be at the program website this afternoon. We know stakeholders are interested in that information. And I want to point out that in that webinar, we shared a linkage to some prior announcements that accompanied the rollout of the disclosure forms, including a May 5th announcement that spoke to some of the scenarios outlined by this stakeholder and actions and opportunities available before June 1, as well as options available after June 1 for those in-flight scenarios. So direct your attention there and look for the Q&A today. Next question, will the updated distributed generation CSV upload templates be available for the June 1 rollout? And the answer is yes. We should have more information on that very soon. I think that's close to availability. Question, how should minimum equity standard plans be submitted by June 1st via email to the program administrator or uploaded to the vendor portal? And the response from the agency links stakeholders to the MES compliance plan form. So at the program administrator, at the program website under the equity accountability system page, you will find a direct link. And that was also relinked in today's announcement with the reminder for June 1. So you can go directly to that form, which has been shared. And following up, if you'd like to review the plan questions prior to submission so that you can be fully prepared with materials, there is a PDF of the blank questions that you can preview. But as a reminder, you must use the online form for actual submission. But thank you to the agency for addressing that. Next question, is there somewhere on the program website to show program awards in the EEC category to update on projects submitted? And the response from the agency from Audrey, there's not a selection process for this category. So applications submitted to the category, if applications submitted to the category are within the program requirements, the projects will be approved subject to those requirements and capacity. As noted before, we are a bit behind in application reviews, so approved vendors will get updates as each individual application is reviewed and approved, as with small DG and large DG categories. Okay, we are getting great questions and getting through most of them. I'm looking. Audrey and team question, if you're a company with several affiliated approved vendors or potentially even designees, AVs, do you need to submit a separate MES compliance plan on June 1 for each of your approved vendors, or can you submit one and list all of the associated AVs associated with your company? Is that one to easily respond to, Audrey?
Sorry, I'm fumbling for my mute button here.
Oh.
I believe that there is, and I know Casey's on, and maybe you can help me with this. I believe that there is a field in the compliance plan form to list affiliated approved vendors. I don't want to give an answer that might be right for some folks and wrong for others. But basically, if the companies are affiliated and you all have the exact same denominator, the exact same project workforce denominator, and the companies are just kind of like single project approved vendors or those LLCs that some companies have made to develop one single project under, then yes, I believe you would submit under one parent AV and note those affiliated LLCs, but I don't.
That's correct.
Yeah, I don't want to say yes to that question because that is a one particular circumstance.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's one example of how affiliates can be in this program. And to your point, if that's the case, then the AV would file a single compliance plan listing those affiliates.
Thank you, Casey. Wonderful. Thank you, Audrey and Casey. We have another question, and I believe this is going to be really handled by the FAQs that were shared. There's some questions about MES project workforce definition and providing guidance to subcontractors on employees included in the MES calculations. And we've shared on those office hours, which again have been each Friday since rollout of minimum equity standard and will continue for several more weeks. Information about your numerator and denominator in preparing the submission of workforce calculations. So please see the FAQs issued today for specific clarity and more instruction on some of your situations. And I think our remaining questions are really variations on some of that, including the affiliate structures and project breakout for MES. So I think we may be caught up. There are some questions that we've addressed prior related to disclosure forms. So again, we want to encourage you to visit the program website and look at the May 18th new disclosure form webinar, which had a lot of information on the new forms, including the background, including what's new, the API, the CSV, updates to the leniency period and the relevant considerations, which were taken into account, and more. So we want to encourage that, including the recording and the slides, and we'll have those Q&A out to stakeholders today. So with that, I think we maybe caught up. Actually got a couple follow-ups. We have a question, Audrey, for projects that were submitted to the TCS category after day one of the 2022 program year, opening for those applications on November 1. Can you speak to that process a little bit?
I'm so sorry. I was reading a different question while you were reading that one to me.
Oh, I'm sorry. May I repeat it for your benefit?
Yes, please.
So we got a question. As stakeholders have followed, we announced updated scores audit results on traditional community solar. And of course, on May 30th, the random selection event for tied projects will be held. We have a question for projects submitted in the TCS category after day one of the 2022 program year, which opened 11/1 for TCS applications. Can you talk a little bit about the ensuing process for those applications after day one?
Yes, so we'll be able to close out the TCS day one applications next week on Tuesday, on May 30th, after that random selection event occurs. And then we've already been working on the review of those day 2, day 3, et cetera, projects that we have received. Obviously, there's two parts to the traditional community solar applications. There's the review of the application to make sure that the application meets program requirements. And then there's the scoring of the application as well, to ensure that it receives the minimum score needed to get placed on the wait list. So basically the answer for this is the same as my answer for any question related to, when will my application be reviewed? It's first come, first served. So we make sure that that is an even playing field across all applications. And the way that you can kind of assess a little bit better, where am I at in that first come, first serve line, is on the program website and through our weekly updates on application approval processes. So not sure if someone from the team can drop the link in the chat to the page where we are having those tables updated each week, but you can see there kind of the date that we're operating around in terms of review for each of those categories.
Great. Thank you so much, Audrey. Okay. There's one other specific question about whether when submitting an EEC project to the Illinois Shines program, whether a land use permit is a required attachment, and if that should be the case. I know this is a specialized question, so if it's not an easy answer, we can pledge to get back to stakeholders. But the question is, should all applications be required to attach the land use permit as an attachment from the beginning time of
Yes.
application?
So that is a requirement for all projects across the entire program. So we can look into what's happening there.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think that's it for our unique questions. I think we covered a lot, including recap on the minimum equity standard and disclosure form webinars. We also held an annual report informational webinar on May 9th of earlier this month. So I don't blame Audrey for the days and weeks blurring together in some instances. But I think that we're through the questions, and therefore through the content. I do want to give our presenters a round of applause today. Audrey Steinbach, Senior Program Manager for Illinois Shines with the IPA, and Tamara Perry of the Program Administrator Team from Energy Solutions. Tamara, Audrey, or our guest Casey, any additional comments or closing remarks you might like to share with stakeholders?
Nope, just a thank you. Looking forward to the new program year, and yeah, thanks so much everyone for your time and your participation.
Yeah, thank you so much. Couldn't
Great.
echoing Audrey's comments. Excited for the new year.
Great, thank you all. We will update the slides with the rec pricing. We appreciate that, and we'll make these slides and the recording and subsequent Q&A available very shortly. Thank you to all of our stakeholders for joining and spending time with us today.